Hello, hi, I'm David Coulthard, and actually, we've been doing this, Eddie, for a few weeks now. So why don't you do the intro for a change?
Welcome to Formula for Success, a weekly chat about Formula One and much more, with Eddie Jordan and my favourite Scottish person, DC.
Why do you have to say Eddie Jordan?
Because it's in the script.
Okay, well
no, start it again then. Fuck off, why is it in there?
No, that's fine. I was
taking the piss.
I was taking the piss. Let's do it again so we've got another one. Okay.
But are you happy with the
Oh, it's perfect. It was absolutely perfect. This time, put some emotion into it, some passion.
Put some push in
Okay. Hello, I'm David Coulthard, and, well, actually, EJ, we've been doing this podcast for a few weeks now, so why don't you do the intro for a change?
Welcome to the Formula for Success, a weekly chat about Formula One and much more, with my favourite Scottish person, DC.
And it's you, Eddie Jordan.
We're live, we're looking at each other, we're in the same room.
I know, it's great, isn't it? Let's see if we can beat our record. We did 20 odd minutes in the same room last time. Let's see if we can go for the full podcast.
I promise you, there was some pain involved in that because I never thought I would make it that distance. Let's see if we can make it more.
I think actually there's an element of, there's obviously a bit of an age gap between us. You must be a good, 35, 40 years older than me?
Oh, minimum. Probably more. About a similar
kindred
age gap
spirits.
between you and your new girlfriend, I suppose. What's that, 40 years?
No, it's at least half that. But anyway, moving on. Look, you're an absolute natural at this, so it is genuinely good to be back in the room with you again. And as promised, we have some questions that have been coming in. Remember, you can get in contact with us by emailing ffs@whisper.tv or via social media at F1 for Success. We really do appreciate all the questions and messages. We're not going to be able to read them all out, and certainly the producers don't want us to read the nice ones out, otherwise your ego, Eddie, will get completely out of hand. But I did like this one from Alex Gilbert.
Ooh, this could be raunchy.
It could be, yes. Or maybe it's Gilbert, but I'm not quite sure. But I've given him a wee French twist. Gilbert. Alex Gilbert. So he goes, hello there. Before I even get into a question or thought, I just want to say you both are my absolute favourite people in the world, beyond my wife and family, of course. And to have you both hosting a podcast is the gift I never knew I needed in my life. Mr. Jordan.
This guy is a sad one.
Well, anyway, Mr. Jordan, he's being very official. You are my all-time top hero. Sorry, DC. That's okay. I get that. Eddie's earned a few more decades on planet Earth, so he can have that. So he goes, Mr. Jordan, if you can see and read this, thank you for all the memories. I could go on for 100 pages on what you and the team did and mean to me. I even had a Jordan F1 car at my wedding. His question is, with an unlimited budget and zero restrictions, if you could do anything in Formula One right now, what would that thing be? Adding, removing, or amending something?
Where would I start? God, that's a super question. Mind you, the intro into that is a bit demanding. But anyway, well done for the question. Look, I'm old-fashioned, and I said that before. I tell you what I miss in Formula One, David? I miss the noise. And I think that the sooner or better we go back to, even when they were the Cosworths, the V8 or whatever, but the V10s were something special that I thought it was the most unbelievable part of Formula One for me. Yes, I like the new safety features. I get rid of some of the stewards because I think there should be a rule where
stewards.
I think some of the stewards. I think
okay,
50%.
I thought you said stewards there for a minute. I was going to say, so Jackie is
no,
very
Jackie
important
is different.
part of the community.
He's proper. He's won a lot more world championships than you and I have ever done, or even looked at, or dreamt about. But the fact is that I think that there are too many little areas cropping up where I think that there needs to be. And I think 50% of the stewards have had to have driven cars or understand the rules, or hopefully Formula One cars. But just having one driver representative is not enough. I really feel that at the moment we are in danger of going down the route. I keep being asked, David, from time to time, and we can come on to that later if you wish, but I've been asked so many times, please, Eddie, can you help me understand what went on in Australia? Can you help me what went on in Abu Dhabi? Why do people still ask you what happened in Abu Dhabi?
Yeah, I get that very often. And
but don't you think we have an obligation to our listeners and you and Whisper and other people who are making it? We need to tell the people what's happening because they are confused like hell. They don't understand.
Yeah, I think it's the age-old issue where you've got the regulating body, which is the FIA, which take care of the rules and regs. And you've got the commercial rights holder, which is owned by Liberty, and then you've got the teams that enter and benefit from the financial rewards that are in Formula One.
And provide the show.
But I do think it is always going to be difficult to be the referees. There's no question. You're never going to please everybody.
That's right.
But I do think they need to have a more open mind that we are an entertainment show. Yes, they've got regulations and jurisdictions that they have to follow, and they have to be super careful. They're dealing with people's lives, and we should remember that we've lost some amazing talents over the years. But putting all that to one side, and there'll be a legal framework to protect that to its best ability, I do think we've got to remember there's a show.
But David, I have a question for you. I need to know the answer to this. Can you please explain to me, what is the difference? What's the point of having a virtual safety car, which does the perfect situation? It drops the speeds of the cars down to a normal speed. And then because they think it might be nicer to bottle it all up together again, send a safety car out and they're all together. But then they've got the cars that have been papped and lapped, they've got to go in front. There needs to be some understanding because the people don't understand that. Now, the second part or the third part of that they don't understand. They don't understand. In my day, it used to be an aggregate. The race was stopped. Your time was published. You saw what your time was. Yes, you got your grid positions as to where you were at the time, but there was a difference. It wasn't a straight race again over the next 10 laps because that makes a mockery of it because the first part counts for nothing. Please explain.
Well, okay, if you can explain to me what the question is, I'll explain.
But you're not listening to me.
I was, but at no point did I understand the question.
The question is, what happened to the situation when a race gets stopped? The time from the first half should be added to the time of the second half. Well, that is not the case anymore.
It's not, because rules get amended and that particular rule has been overwritten. Well, and I suspect it was when a race that I led up until a couple of laps before the pit stop in Brazil. So I led more laps than anyone else. I pitted. Then there was a huge crash that involved Fernando Alonso, Mark Webber. The beneficiary of that was you with Fisichella. Exactly.
I thought he'd never get around to it.
And I was robbed of a race victory because because we don't know
You have a word with Ron Dennis because he's a dick. He absolutely made the wrong call. He should have known.
Yeah, we shouldn't have pitted
known
before
that the race would always go to 75%.
Yes.
And you didn't have enough fuel in the car because your engineers were not thinking through their head. That's why.
Okay, we did make a mistake, but in that situation...
That's why you lost. Blame them.
In that situation, calling a 75% race distance was I felt very unfair. But anyway, look...
That's the rules.
People don't say, David Coulthard, 14 times Grand Prix winner, or 15 times, you're welcome for Spa 98.
You're trying to make me feel small.
Or 16 times, you're welcome, Mika Hakkinen, 98 Melbourne. They go, David who?
I have a violin in my case.
Right. Okay, well, let's come back to music in a moment, but there is one more question. This is from Sam. And he said that he's been listening to the episode where you, Eddie, were talking about team principles. And he wanted to know what it was like in the team meetings of your day. Because I think this might be stimulated by Netflix has given us this Drive to Survive access where we saw the much memes and quoted little session between Toto Wolff complaining about porpoising and Christian Horner saying, change your effing car. And obviously there's an element of that's being filmed. Was it like that back in the day when you were sitting there with all the team principals, and I assume Bernie was in the room? Were you all having a fair crack of saying what you want, or was it basically one or two of you were the mouthpieces, and I guess you were quite vocal? How was it?
Well, those of you who either grew up or was part of the Bernie era will clearly know that there was only ever one leader, and that was him. He was the ringmaster, and he controlled absolutely everything. But then, to be very fair, we just quantify that by saying I've never met a better visionary in my entire life than him. He just had that magic. However, these team principal meetings was a joke. We decide, who was getting what money, and he would decide that Ferrari were getting 3% more than anyone else, irrespective of where they were on the grid or whatever happened. And it wasn't a question that we disagreed with that. We were kind of told beforehand, you will agree to this. But, he used to have, whenever someone confronted him, he had a great ability to divide and rule. So if he thought maybe 3 people were ganging up on him, he'd make it sure that he would make it so embarrassing for at least 1 or 2 of those that they crawl back down into their little hatch and sort of be quiet. And that was it. He controlled. He was a master. But he used to call me a robber. And he said, the robber is about to say something, guys. He had absolutely no regard for correctness or anything. But it was a joke, but it wasn't really a joke. And he would make it sure. And he said, Flavio, who was his friend, he said, Flavio, you're making a mistake. You should stick to selling T-shirts because, at least you know something about T-shirts. But that was his way of describing what he went on. And it went on from then. He called Frank, who was very successful at the time, and he used to say, Frank, you know something? I think you're about the most devious person I've ever met in my life. And he used to come out and say these things in front of everybody, and no one ever cared. He said to Tom Walkinshaw was a classic, and Tom was there, and Tom was always very well behaved, and he had always certain good questions. But he put his hand up one day, he said, yes, Tom, what are you saying? I said, sorry, Tom, don't say anything. He said, I always know when you're lying. Tom, I always know when you're lying. And of course, Tom was about to say, how, when, Bernie? He said, as soon as your lips move. And I'm saying, Jesus, how can you say something like that? There's someone sitting directly across the table. And Tom was about 5 times his side.
Yeah, he was a big rugby guy.
Gloucester Rugby Club. I always thought there was going to be fireworks. Bernie controlled everything. Make no mistake. I don't know what they're actually going to say in some of the movies that's coming out about Bernie, but when the story happens and when it really takes all the gloves off, I want to be able to see what is happening. It was hilarious. I'm not sure things were discussed, but he'd have the people from Luca de Montezemolo. He had them
from Ferrari.
Ferrari, absolutely, and they were, and they still are. The reality is that Bernie had a good vision. He said, guys, let's be clear. And for those younger people in the audience, remember that Formula One was never like this until Bernie came along. Formula One was a sort of a cowboy situation that if Ferrari entered the race at, we say, the British Grand Prix, Ferrari, then the other teams would turn up. But all of the money for the entry would nearly have always gone to Ferrari, and the rest of the teams got the crumbs. So Bernie changed all that, and he decided to make it into a much bigger marketing effort. And he said, look, these teams are all committed, and that's where the 10 teams, the 10 get the pot and the share of the pot as to where you finish in the championship. So at least you could try and balance the books to see what was likely to come in. Whereas in the previous days, you were at the mercy of dealing with every different promoter, and that was not sustainable. Absolutely not sustainable. So well done to Bernie. There's no doubt that Formula One would not be where it is.
No, he's laid some incredible foundations, and then Liberty, an American company, have really come in and taken it to the next level. Yeah, very, very impressive. Right, we've got another question here from a Dara Payton. Dara, that sounds like an Irish name, doesn't it? But the question...
These are all my first cousins, by the way.
Are they really?
Yeah,
okay.
Well, I think they must be.
Yeah, well, Dara then, as a relative of yours, wants to know, where are the 4 trophies? I guess the 4 victories you had in Formula One he's talking about, 2 of which I directly contributed to. You're welcome. He wants to know, have you still got the trophies, or have you sold them, or are they Aston Martin's factory, because that ultimately was the old Jordan factory?
Well, funny enough, I wish I knew. I think did I not donate something? You have this big shrine up in Scotland. You've got a museum and you've got everything you've ever had up there.
Yeah.
That must be very proud for you to walk through there. I'm the opposite. I do not have a roll of Jordan yellow toilet paper. I don't have anything. I have no trophies. I think Andy Stevenson came to me at the end of my tenure and he said, look, Eddie, Monza, I could be wrong. He said, I'd absolutely love to have the trophy. I gave it to him. I never once brought home a trophy. I do not have a car. I do not have a helmet. I do not have a suit. The only thing I did find that somebody sent to me was a yellow DHL jacket, which I wore skiing recently, as you pointed out to me. And I'm quite proud of that. And I wish I'd kept some of the stuff, to be very honest. But a great friend of ours in Monaco, who we cycle with, it's Harry Gibbons, he has on his wall the original 191 wind tunnel model.
Yeah, it's
and
a lovely
that's the
model.
only thing we have, and I'm not even sure whether it was a gift to Harry or whatever, but I know it's in good, happy, friendly family hands, and if I needed it back I could get it. But I'm very happy that he has it, because he takes joy out of having it.
Yeah, he does indeed. And actually, we'll give a shout out to Harry, because not only did he first approach Jordan when he was working at Oakley Glasses, he, as an Irishman from Cork, he drove to Silverstone, went to the Jordan factory and approached you about having some sort of supply deal with the team. And I think Jordan were one of the first teams to have the Jordan coloured Oakley glasses. But since he has left that business, he set up an electric bicycle company, the lightest electric bike you can buy, called HPS. Well worth checking it out, listeners. And the hardware is designed by...
Yes, go on.
Gary Anderson.
Absolutely.
Who was one who designed your original Formula One car.
The most practical person on this planet. Gary Anderson is a walking legend. And I put Harry and Gary together. Two not easy people to deal with, let me tell you. Bit fried, a bit chippy on the sides. But that's what you often get when you get brilliance. And Gary designed something the size of a half-decent glass case, an electric motor, which is part of that program, and that's one of the reasons why it's so light. But the two of them deserve one another, and I just hope that they can get the marketing together to get it out there. David, you and I both share the same view on that.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. I'm a customer, so when I ever see any pictures on my social media when I've been riding a bike up a hill, I've normally had a little bit of an assistance. But
that's cheating, David.
No, it's not at all. If we play golf and you're a scratch golfer and I'm off 18, there's a handicap system. So if I'm cycling with a professional cyclist who's 25 years old and I'm 52, then I've got 200 watts up my sleeve. And
tell them you're out there with Chris Froome every weekend, going up and down to La Turbie.
Yeah, there's a lot of cyclists in south of France. Anyway, I can ride the hills with those guys and still get a good workout, but I can keep up rather than getting dropped. There's nothing worse. Anyone listening who's a cyclist, you'll know the lowest low is when you're out with a group of friends and you get dropped and then you're left all on your own. Let's actually then move on to one final question from a Ricky Whitehead. And he sent in a bit of love. He loves the podcast. And a question to you, Eddie, as always. Do you still buy those very expensive shirts from London? Because this guy, Ricky, apparently went into the particular shop that you used to get your shirts. And he remembers that you used to have a cutaway on the cuff so you could show whatever brand of watch you were promoting at that time. And he's saying here he could have bought a new Rolex for the price of the shirts that you used to wear. So what's the story there? Do you still have those? And what's the most expensive item of clothing you've ever bought?
I could never hold my face up and lie.
What?
Because a lie is always
You've
sinful.
lied
Did
to
your
me
mother
several
never tell you
times.
that? A lie is always sinful and can never be forgiven. So I don't tell lies. But
You embellish the truth somewhat.
I embellish is the word. But anyway, the shirt, Angelo Galasso. I mean, I feel a little bit sorry for Angelo because most of the stuff that he did and created was kind of wild to wear, but it created what I was, I'm thinking about my persona. What is it that I need? I'm short, I'm older, I'm this. I just needed something, and I got a buzz out of wearing those nice shirts because people often refer to them.
Yeah, people still comment on it.
And Angelo Galasso, God, he was brilliant. And I think where he's lost a fair amount of trade is on the Russian side of things. He had to close his shop there. Yes, Dubai is working for him. And so what's been taken up, but not to the same level, is the Middle East.
Yeah, and so the final part of that question was, what was the most expensive item of clothing you ever bought? But as far as I know, you've always blagged all your clothing.
I've never knowingly bought anything. It's not really in my gift. I just, if I'm in Monaco, I over 70, my greatest joy last week, I was skiing in Courchevel. And I said to the lady, when she was asking me, I said, look, I want to get a ticket. And I gave her a pass. And I said, I read somewhere that you do something for people over 75. And she said, oh, yes, Mr. Jordan, they're free. She said, but that doesn't apply to you. I said, well, here's my passport. Why don't you do a little check on it? And she had a look and she had to give me... She gave me back £220 that I'd already prepaid for the pass, not knowing, and I took a complete gamble on the thing and I got my money back.
The luck of the Irish.
Well, there you go.
I have noticed actually that you've started to use the bus around London rather than taking a taxi as well.
No, I used the tube.
The tube, free as well.
Of course.
Yeah, unbelievable.
But David, if you'd spent all your time in England and you'd paid your national insurance and you'd paid what you rightly have to pay as a subject in this great country, you would get... Not alone would you get a pension, but you would get these privileges. But then you went off to Monaco at an early age.
I did, that's true. But I would just like to say for the record, I do pay UK tax on my UK earnings.
So does everybody else.
Yeah.
You're not alone, David. Get used to it, son.
But can I just ask, where do you live, EJ?
I'm in Cape Town, I think.
I can see your apartment from where I am. Right, moving on. Look, you mentioned at the beginning of the show that you've put the final touches. You've added some, funky bits to your spoons and some, I don't know what word you use for taking guitar to another level. So you're obviously happy with this new updated version of the show's theme music. So are you going to press play? We can have a wee listen.
Yeah, we'll go to press play because let's see what people think. It's not that far away from where it was, but it just has much more body and it has more... aggravation, and I think aggro in music is very important.
Oh. What's... God, I hate to say this, but I think we found our new music.
Oh, thank God I don't have to go back to that studio. I just wore out my fingers playing that thing.
That is good. It must be fun putting it together.
No, it's fun when you've got good people around you who are able to steer you around the little pitfalls. Your music is such a great art form in many respects. I don't see it that far away from motor racing, and because as a practitioner, I'm not able to drive anymore. I never could drive probably, but being involved with a team and seeing what's going on. Aston Martin has taken over, if you like, the ashes of what Jordan was and Kingfisher and stuff like that. So for me, music gives me that outlet.
This is the last time for a wee while that we're going to be in the same room. Are you going to miss me?
I would have said no in a couple of weeks ago, but this has been a joy. It has been very little pain. And I think some form of gain. I think I've recalled and my memory said, remember when you get older, your memory you have to really dig deep to start thinking about what happened 25 years ago, 30 years ago. And some of it is not exactly crystal clear. So I have to either make it up or try and find a way that I know about it.
You have remembered you owe me a few quid from 92.
No, I would always remember that. And I think if anything, you'll have to speak to Gordon, your dad. I think the reverse back, I don't think he ever paid me for the landing fees that he had in Leixlip all those years ago when I helped him out. But I'm sure he'll make it up to me in time.
Yeah, well, my dad's called Duncan, not Gordon. So thankfully,
sorry,
thankfully it's Gordon that owes you money, not my dad.
I think it's a Gordon, Duncan. Call him what you like.
It's a Scottish kind of name, isn't it? Right, that's all we've got time for, I think, EJ. We are in a rather nice bedroom here with a double bed. It's taken me back to Baku all those years ago. Do you want to cuddle in and just have a wee snooze?
Do you think for nostalgia should we try? Do you remember which side of the bed you were in?
Yeah, I was on the right side as you lie on the bed, left as you look at it.
And we looked out. Do you remember what magazine or paper we were reading for the morning news while we were on television making the programme?
Knowing you, it was probably the Financial Times.
Well, I think whatever it was upside down because my knowledge of Bakuland or Azerbaijani is not great, I have to say. As indeed, I'm sure most people will remind me that it's similar to that of my English. But anyway, passing along, they were a great moment. David, I thought that was a really cool thing that we did. And it was fun. I did think you were a bit edgy, and I'm saying, I can't remember. I mean, I knew you, but we were working together, and this was BBC, and it was actually fun. But you were out there, weren't you? I mean, you were a bit bit raunchy.
Raunchy?
Well,
Me?
How many men do you invite to your room and share a bed with?
Very often. Very few accept the invitation, but I knew that you being so tight with your money.
No, you were providing me with a room, if I remember rightly.
No.
And you probably charged the production company and scammed off with that little touch that you say and binned the money.
Yeah, well, look, as you know, and he'll remain nameless for the purposes of this, I do share at Grand Prix very often with another ex-racer, and I just love the banter. You know, I grew up going to kart races.
Yeah, but you don't share the bed with him.
No, of course not. We have two separate beds. But I have fun. I push them closer together because he doesn't like it. But no, I grew up sleeping in a motorhome or a karting van with anything up to 8 people. So that we went racing as a family. So I'm always used to having people in the room.
Camping, and it is one of the great holidays. People remember when, kids want to go to this 3-star, 2-star, 5-star, 6-star, whatever it is, these hotels these days. I've had the best crack of all time coming to the British Grand Prix in a scutty, crappy little tent. Yeah. And maybe 6 inside a tent for 2. It was hilarious. But you had to drink a lot to be able to make sure you got through the night. And that's what happened. But they're the things you remember.
I do. I stay at the BRDC campsite in a motorhome, not a tent, but I have 5 or 6 buddies in there. And when I get back from doing our television stuff, they've been watching, they've been having a couple of beers, they might have the barbecue on. It's absolutely brilliant. And that to me...
Harry is one of them.
Harry is one of them.
Ginger Bangle.
And Nigel Essam from Red Eye Events. And for all your ticketing needs. All right, EJ, we're going to have to wrap it up because they said they would charge me for the room.
To see something.
Yeah, they're going to charge us for the room if we don't get out. But remember, you can subscribe to Formula for Success wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss any episodes. And you can tell your pals too, please. See you next week.
Great pleasure. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for the support. I do believe this podcast is taking traction more than you ever had in your Formula One days, David.
Okay. You, obviously, now that we're wrapping up, you're not being nice anymore. So, F you, EJ.
And what about FTB? We'll ask the people out there, the listeners, my favourite expression is FTB because I have it tattooed on my wrist. And if anyone can tell me what it is, there might be a little prize.
It's a good one, actually. And I am the witness. He definitely has FTB, as do all of your children.
Yeah.
All your kids have FTB tattooed on their wrist.
Very much an Irish thing.
Okay, well, we look forward.
And the B is not British.
Okay, well, we look forward to the listeners giving their interpretation of what FTB can be. But in the meantime, this has been FFS.
You managed that. Brilliant. Well done, David.
Ah.